and said he knows exactly where Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is hiding, but will not take him down yet.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, and I'm quoting him here, Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than good old USA. He hailed the use of US-made weaponry, although without explicitly mentioning Israel. Trump's remark comes hours after he said that he wants to end the Israel-Iran war and not go for ceasefire.
Now, the U.S. Embassy in Israel struck by an Iranian missile on Monday. The first strike on an American diplomatic facility in this conflict points at escalation concern bigger than ever before. Though at least so far the U.S. has spoken of restraint, there's also no denying that powerful forces are pushing America closer to deeper involvement.
First, Israel's call. Prime Minister Netanyahu has formally requested U.S. military support to target Iran's deeply buried Fordo uranium enrichment site. Israeli officials confirmed that they lack the capability to destroy the facility independently. Secondly, there is mounting domestic political pressure on President Trump from within his own party. Former Vice President Mike Pence stated that if Israel needs U.S. help to destroy Iran's nuclear program, the U.S. should be prepared to do it, calling Israel its most cherished ally.
Republican senators and hawks in Washington have urged Trump to go all in, including providing bombs or flying with Israel, and not to be missed the direct attacks on U.S. interests, such as the attack on the embassy in Tel Aviv. Now, looking forward, Iran could also attack international shipping in the Gulf of Red Sea, triggering a global energy crisis and potentially forcing U.S. intervention.
But the U.S. entering the conflict, it carries immense dangers. Iran has vowed retaliation against any country aiding Israel. About 40,000 U.S. troops in West Asia with their bases, embassies and naval vessels face immediate missile attacks from Iran or its proxies. If Iran feels its regime is existentially threatened, it might accelerate its nuclear program to develop a weapon, leading to an even more dangerous security landscape and an economic fallout, of course, that would have repercussions for the world. The Strait of Hormuz, which is a crucial choke point for 20% of the world's oil, it could become a war zone, causing energy prices to spike and destabilizing global markets.
Now, tensions simmer and Israel presses forward. And the risk of the regional war spiraling out of control with potential U.S. involvement remains dangerously real. This crisis could very well define President Trump's second term.
All right, for more on this, we're now joined by Asha Castleberry, U.S. National Security and Foreign Policy expert. She's a former senior advisor, Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs at the U.S. Department and former Kuwait desk officer at the U.S. Army Central. Thank you so much for joining us on WION The World is One.
Thank you.
Of course, now we've been hearing the statements that have been coming out of the United States, with U.S. President Donald Trump first saying that the United States now has complete control over the skies of Iran. In a response to that, we saw that Iran says that it has launched some missile attacks over Iran, saying that it has control over its skies still, which seems to be, of course, a direct response to Trump's comments. Also, we are hearing that he wants absolute surrender. That being said, one, how do you see the role of the United States in this conflict?
Well, the United States is definitely interested in a ceasefire, pretty much achieving peace between the two, making sure that diplomacy is being restored. Unfortunately, there's going to be some struggles or difficulties along this way because compared to the conflict from last year versus this year, this is definitely more escalatory. And on top of that, the issues involving Iranians' nuclear ambition or program right now is looking a lot more closer in terms of becoming a nuclear state. And this is why the conflict initiated, where you had Israel targeting nuclear facilities. So I must say the United States, they're going to try aggressively to make sure that there's a ceasefire as soon as possible, because it is the current administration's strategic interest end this conflict.
Right, and also, you are a former Kuwait desk officer, and maybe it'd be interesting to hear this from you. Now, Netanyahu has claimed that the current war could facilitate the Abraham Accords normalization agreement between Israel and Arab states. Meanwhile, Qatar's spokesperson at Qatar has said, foreign ministry has said and warned that Israel's action would have very dire repercussions for the region. What do you make of these statements? It seemed to be contradictory.
Well, looking at President Trump's visit to the region prior to the conflict, there was a lot that played out with regards to GCC states, and there was a strategic interest as far as looking into expanding the Abraham Accords, making sure that there was more peace between Israel and Arab states. So what you're seeing now that is being played out is that is harder to maintain right now as we're dealing with Iran. So, of course, with regards to statements, they're going to conflict because this is a challenging moment right now for GCC states and other Arab countries that are part of the Abraham Accords, and they're trying to figure out how do we bring both countries to the table, because in terms of looking at it as a balancing approach.
Right now, speaking of escalation as well, we know the situation in West Asia remains tense at the moment, and that's a gross understatement as well. We've also said that Trump has said that he knows exactly where Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is hiding, but will not take him out yet. And of course, we've also heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he was asked whether or not that could lead to further escalation, where he said this will not escalate this conflict, it will end it. So how do you assess these statements?
Also, I would like to just add to that, Khamenei has also replied saying that we must give a strong response to a terrorist Zionist regime. We will show the Zionists no mercy. This comes after Trump had warned that he might take out Khamenei, but not as of now.
Well, looking at the situation right now, in the beginning, Israel actually successfully targeted the leadership within the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, so they have the capabilities to do so. I think with regards to the language that is being promoted, it's a way to build an informational deterrence as a way to bring Iran to the table and try to achieve a ceasefire. So with regards to being offensive or aggressive, I think it's just a tactic to say, if we continue this, we will look into targeting key leadership. And the fall of a key leader like that is definitely significant within Iran. I think, if anything, will create more instability within Iran, and then create more malign activities that will proliferate throughout the region. So right now, I think the strategic interest between Israel and the United States is to deter Iran, bring to the table, achieve a ceasefire, and then a pathway to peace between the two countries.
All right. Well, Ms. Castleberry, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this. All right, and in big news coming in, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem says it will close until Friday and directed government employees to shelter in place as Israel and Iran battle each other. In a statement posted on its website, the embassy said that the closure was a result of the current security situation, of course, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. So this is the latest that we're getting right now. U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem says it will close until Friday and has directed government employees to shelter in place as Israel and Iran battle each other. The statement was posted on its website. The embassy has said that the closure was a result of the current security situation and the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran.
All right, now on the broadcast, we've got Dr. Reza Khanzadeh, who is a senior foreign policy advisor. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Dr. Khanzadeh, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, President Donald Trump has an important decision to make. The Israeli Prime Minister has asked for American help. The question, of course, is this: will President Donald Trump, who's called himself the President of Peace, decide to join this war in the Middle East?
Yeah, thanks for having me. That seems to be the most important question right now at this point, considering what we've seen transpire over the last couple hours and days, especially with Trump leaving the G7 summit in Canada, leaving that early to then meet with his security cabinet, with much speculation that there may be a discussion about the U.S. Joining and or helping Israel attack Iran, specifically with bunker busting bombs, for Iran's Fordo. Whether or not he will do that, I feel at this point it's so difficult to say, because up until a few hours ago, most analysts, most experts, including myself, felt that he would not. Primarily because of the campaign slogan that he ran on, not wanting to go into any more wars. And in your program, you mentioned how many in his own political party want him to help and aid Israel. There's also a good number of politicians within his own political party that don't want him to do that. And many, if not most, of the people in the United States who voted for him voted on that campaign, for him promising not to go into any more wars. Now, this type of war is very different than the type of war that many Americans are describing or envisioning, because when they talk about no more wars in the Middle East, they envision something that happened in Iraq or Afghanistan, where there were U.S. soldiers on the ground fighting an actual war. In this instance, that won't be the case. As far as we know, that's very, very unlikely to happen. At the most, at this time, it will be just the U.S. supplying Israel with bigger and better bombs in order to help Israel really do the level of damage that they want to do. And Trump could very well help them do that, especially in his second term. He's not up for re-election, so as far as his own political career is concerned, I don't think he cares about that. He does care about his legacy, but even with that type of legacy, whether he's the president of peace or the president that gave freedom to a country like Iran, if that's the way he sees it, he could still make that decision. Now, at the same time, there have been reports out of Israel where they have decided to bomb Iran's Fordo nuclear site with or without U.S. help. Now, what that entails, how that's going to look,
but they've actually already done it. Dr. Khanzadeh, this is where it's very interesting.
That's true. It's happening
Israelis
right now. Yeah.
have actually already bombed Fordo. And what is to be pointed out is that the IAEA later in its assessment said that despite the Israeli bombings, the fact that the nuclear facility in Fordo is so deep under the mountains is that there was literally nothing that was damaged despite the Israeli bombing, which is why the Israelis have now formally requested the United States to in fact step in and try to take that nuclear facility out. But I want to go back to what you said, which I find is interesting. You said that earlier you were of the belief that Donald Trump would not take the United States into a war which has been started by the Israelis, but you now have changed your mind. What changed your mind?
Well, it seems like the strategy that was going into this attack by Israel with the consultation of the Trump administration was that these series of attacks over the past 3 days and 4 days, now we're on to the 5th and 6th day, but those first 3-4 days, the strategy was from Israel and the United States was that these level of attacks would bring Iran to some level of weakness, to the point where they might either heed to these attacks and want to have some type of off-ramp where there could be diplomacy to have a ceasefire and maybe continue the nuclear talks. And we've seen that's not the case. Every day that goes on, Iran is continuously bombing Israel. and some nights it's more bombs than others, and there's much more attacks actually occurring now because Israel's Iron Dome has not been that successful compared to the first few nights. Now we're on to the fifth and sixth night, and there is a war of attrition to also keep in mind here, because Iran does have a finite number of bombs. There's going to get to a point where they're just going to run out. They don't have an unlimited supply like Israel does, because Israel has access to the United States. So there's also that to consider. But given the level of surprise that I think Israel and the United States have seen, that Iran has been able to counter Israel with these tit-for-tat attacks. And now we're at a point where both countries are essentially bombing each other at the same time. They're not taking turns anymore. And the bombing is also happening during the daytime. I feel like that has tipped the scale a bit towards the favor of Iran, but also to their detriment, because now Trump is actually seriously considering helping and aiding Israel.
Right. Dr. Khanzadeh, there is a history to how Israel has fought wars in the past. Ever since Israel was brought into existence in 1948, the Americans have aided and have fought in every single war that the Israelis have been involved in, 1967, 1973, etc. But this time round, it is the fifth day, and yet the American involvement still seems ambiguous. Why do you think Americans are taking so much time to make up their mind this time round?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that question, and unfortunately we don't have enough time, I think, on this program.
But if you could go into it briefly.
I'll try to keep it short. Essentially, I think to put it shortly, it really has to do with the mindset of the American culture, environment, where you want to call it. The American citizens know a lot more about their government now. There's not many secrets as far as the way U.S. foreign policy is concerned when it comes to Israel, and a lot more people within America are
But America is not concerned with public opinion when it comes to waging wars. I mean, we've witnessed this in the past, where the public opinion could be against war, but the American government is more than happy to go into a war head first. But why do you think this time round, it is day 5, it is night 6 of this exchange between Iran and Israel, and yet, despite the beating that the Israelis have taken, we've never witnessed this kind of destruction of an Israeli cities as what we've witnessed in the last 5 days. What do you think is holding the Americans back?
I think it has to do with the new round of, or not round, but the new breed of politicians that are entering the Republican Party, who are very much against these types of wars. They have lived through it with Iraq and Afghanistan, and also they are much more against AIPAC, which is Israel's lobbying arm within Capitol Hill, within Congress, who bankroll a lot of these politicians, campaign seasons and trying to get reelected. And a lot of these new politicians are not buying into that type of bankrolling and being at the whims of AIPAC and Israel. So there is that counter within the American culture where they are pushing against that type of movement by AIPAC, by Israel. So I think that's what's kind of holding back the Trump administration at this time.
Interesting. We'll of course have to wait and watch as to what Donald Trump of course decides and how soon does he decide. But thank you very much indeed, Dr. Reza Khanzadeh, for joining us with your perspective there. A signal of more shockers is in store on Israel's part in the Iran-Israel conflict. Israeli ambassador to the United States says that his country still has some surprises up its sleeve in the fight against Iran. The ambassador Yichel later says that the full scope of Israel's recent actions against Iran has not yet been revealed, noting that there's a lot that's still possible. He even says that new war offensives to come will make the Beeper operation of September last year seem very simple and little. Now, for context, the Beeper operation last year involved detonating thousands of Hezbollah beepers and walkie-talkies, and many Hezbollah fighters were injured in the complex. Years-long intelligence infiltration by the Israelis. In an interview to Merit TV in Israel, Ambassador later also revealed that the Mossad operations used in the first night of the attack included a drone base that the Israelis built on Iranian soil. He described Israel's bombing of Iran as the war to end wars and the war to engender peace in West Asia, and that there is absolutely no pressure from the United States to stop the fighting. And not to be missed, however, is Ambassador Leiter's bid to tone down the bombast. He steps back to say that Israel is open for a negotiated end to the conflict with Iran, even as he insists that the complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs is a key condition.
Mr. Nathan Paul Sutton is the Operations Director at the Eyewitness Project. He is now joining us live from Scotland. Mr. Paul, welcome to the program. There's a lot of speculation over what America is going to do next. US President Donald Trump is meeting his national security team in the White House in a short while from now. Some analysts say Trump appears to be engaging in a campaign of deception. Is this the right time for the United States to step into this war with Iran?
It definitely isn't the right time for the US to step into this war. This war should not be happening. What was happening up until a week ago was the US negotiating with Iran, trying to create a new nuclear agreement similar to what was created under the Obama administration. Now, if those talks had continued, it was likely we were going to reach another deal between the US and Iran, and that could have actually reduced the likelihood of Iran pursuing nuclear capabilities, at least for a while. What Israel has done here is they're essentially forcing Iran's hand. The likelihood of them aggressively pursuing increased nuclear capabilities are going up drastically as long as Israel continues this campaign against Iran. And now the US is being forced to make a decision essentially against their own terms, which they set up with Israel. Now they're having to decide to get involved in a war that they did not start, they did not agree to, but nor do they want to publicly defy Israel or not show support. They've also got to decide, if they were able to enter into that war, what the likely outcome would be. Would Trump be able to get some kind of US victory over Iran? Would they be able to stop that nuclear capability from growing? Or would they just be putting their own military infrastructure in the wider Middle East region at greater risk? So Trump is being forced to decide what he wants to do here, and I honestly don't think he knows what the best strategic move is for the United States.
Mr. Paul, Israel now insists that the war will not end without damaging Iran's Fordo facility. How crucial is the destruction of this facility, and can Israel really do it alone, or will they need the assistance of America?
It's an incredibly crucial site. There's also other sites that are important to the nuclear capabilities of Iran, including Isfahan and Natanz. Fordo is by far the most critical site for Iran developing a nuclear weapon. The clear problem for Israel is, and it always has been, that this facility could be up to 90 meters between earth, between mountain, and Israel simply does not have the capability to strike a facility that deep into rock face. The problem, however, isn't just that the US may not give these weapons to Israel, and then may not enlist themselves into the conflict, is that the US's own bunker buster bombs may not even be able to reach that depth of facility. And that is a concern within the US defense apparatus, where they enter into this conflict and they are not actually able to destroy the nuclear capability of Iran. And if Israel, even with assistance from the US or not, if they continue this war against Iran and they do not come out of it by destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities, which is looking increasingly likely that they won't, then Iran's opportunity to aggressively pursue this bomb will then come.
Mr. Paul, let's decode what Trump said in the last few hours. He actually began by warning Tehran residents to evacuate immediately. Now, the big question is, Tehran is home to over 10 million people. Where can they go? Can they simply pack, live up, and just go? And where should they go, or where can they go?
No, they don't really have anywhere safe to go to. And yes, it may be Trump saying that, but we've seen very similar tactics with the Israel conflict in Gaza for the last few years, where they announce an area will be struck heavily and request that civilians then leave, but the civilians have nowhere to go. So it's a great way of Israel committing to attacking a place and what is often war wages that are guilty of war crimes, but saying that they'd issued some kind of pre-warning prior to that. The people of Tehran, the capital city, are not able to escape. They're not able to leave en masse, and it's a worrying sign because it shows that there is no nuclear capability site that Israel will likely be targeting inside Tehran, but they continue to attack the capital city, most likely hoping that this encourages enough fear and resistance that there may be a chance of regime change, that people may start to rise up out of that fear.
Mr. Paul, finally and very quickly, Israel is claiming that it has struck 12 missile launch and storage sites in Iran. What's the repercussion of that?
The sites that Israel is attacking in Iran, like the main concern we have right now is not that it's actually going to reduce nuclear capability for Iran, but there could actually be a spread of nuclear contamination from radiation spreading. This could create an enormous humanitarian disaster. It's a similar risk that we've seen with the Russia-Ukraine war, and the risk is that Israel attempts to reduce a nuclear capability, but in actual fact what they do is they unleash a radiation disaster for all of the population of Iran and even possibly the surrounding countries.
All right, Mr. Paul Sutton, good to see you. Thank you for talking to us today.
All right, U.S. State Department Press Secretary Tammy Bruce is holding a briefing. Take a listen.
Certainly a rapidly evolving dynamic, but to conclude the topper here today, I want to recognize the State Department and other U.S. government teams around the world working under threat on behalf of the American people, particularly those in Israel and Ukraine, who spent another night sheltering in bunkers as they came under attack. Our priority is the safety of Americans overseas and here at home. It is the priority of Secretary Marco Rubio. It is the priority of everyone who works in this building, and the thousands of American citizens who work anonymously and whom you will never see, who are working in embassies and consulates around the world and working with those local nations to be there for American citizens and to help facilitate American diplomacy. Our priority is the safety of Americans, yes, here at home, but also overseas. We thank all of those working on behalf of the American people, all of you watching from home and from around the world. We thank you, and for everyone around the nation, we know and honor your work as we begin another briefing here, ready to take your questions. All right, yes, sir.
Yes, hi, Tammy, thanks. Thanks for that. Could you give us some more details on this task force, how it's going to work, and specifically if it's going to help Americans potentially leave the region, be repatriated, or depending on the countries that they're in, and any more details you can give on that?
Right. I won't be giving you, just as a reminder of how today is a little bit of a different day for the briefing. There is always things that I can't say to you. And yet we have a long back and forth. Sometimes we have a little bit of a debate. I won't engage in that today. My responses will be perhaps a bit quicker than usual, and I'll be moving around more quickly to reach as many of you as I can. There will be less that I can answer for you because of the circumstances that we're dealing with around the world. So it is, just want you to know, it's not personal, but we're working on certain things like the task force as an example. The task force is a group of people who are working, taking the calls of people, of American citizens around the world, making sure that they get connected with what they may need in that region. I won't go into the details of all that the task forces do, of course, but it's about information, making sure people here at the State Department and people that we get the information we need, but also people around the world, American citizens, get directed to the information that they may need as well. So I'll leave it at that, but this is something that the State Department does when there's a situation that requires it, and this is one of those times.
Tammy, I'm sorry.
Sure, Matt. Sure, of course.
The phone number that you get, if you call that number, which I can do right now, who do you get?
You get an individual who is
task force, or
no, you don't get the task force. That phone number is a general phone number. The task force is busy, but it is a separate unit that is established to take the calls to assist American citizens who call to the embassies. Particularly, you're going to be referred to embassies who can help you get what it is you need. So good question. Thank you, sir.
Break this story for you. We are receiving also another statement that I read before from the United States President, which is who has issued a stern warning to Iran. Trump says, I'll actually read the post by Trump. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but he's safe there. We're not going to take him out or kill him, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Susan Teherani, going back to you. You are at the United Nations headquarters. What is the United Nations saying about this unfolding situation?
Well, I just had a conversation with Russia's ambassador to the United Nations. He came here behind me at the UN stakeout. And in not so many words, he said that Russia tried to mediate some sort of ceasefire and mediation between Iran and Israel, and possibly the United States as well with its nuclear issue a few days ago. But it appears that there is no appetite for that. He added shortly after that no appetite, at least from Israel's side. I also had the opportunity to ask him whether or not he could confirm or deny reports that high-ranking Iranian officials have reached out to Russia to try to find a safe corridor to exit Iran should tensions rise. This stability in the government is not as stable as it is, and will the families be granted asylum in Russia? He said he could neither confirm or deny those reports. So those are the things that we just heard from the Russian ambassador. It's important to note that the European Union in unison also says that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They have called for tensions to simmer down, for some kind of negotiation to pull through. But as we're seeing things develop on the ground, and especially this latest post by President Trump, it doesn't seem like there is really an appetite for things to calm down right now. We haven't heard much from the Iranian side in the last few hours.
All right, that is Susan Teherani. She's our correspondent in New York. Susan Teherani, keep your eyes out. I know you are at the United Nations headquarters, so keep your eyes out on what developments will happen in the coming future. Mr. Ahmed Al-Ibrahim is a Saudi political analyst and also a U.S.-Saudi relations expert. He's now joining us live from Riyadh. Mr. Al-Ibrahim, thank you for making time for us and welcome to the program. There is concerns among many in the United States amid contradictory messaging from the White House and the president, who doesn't want Iran to produce a nuclear weapon, warning residents in Tehran to leave, now saying the U.S. has control over Iranian skies. What do you make of America's stance and Trump's messaging?
First of all, thank you for giving me the chance, and my regards to you and to all viewers. I think the message from the White House is very consistent with what has been happening for the whole time. President Donald Trump has given 60 days. The 60 days has passed. Iran has to come up and front and play game. And he wanted to basically have this kind of negotiation on the table. We do understand that Donald Trump is a very good negotiator. However, also he doesn't want to go into war. But as your correspondent, Mrs. Teherani, said, that something happened yesterday that has been also got off limits, that he had to, come, and cut his trip from G7 and go back to Washington and deal with the security team at the White House. So this tells us that Iran was preparing something, or in the process of preparing something. They don't have the intention, I mean the regime of Iran, they don't have the intention actually to come to the table or try to basically de-escalate. I think they have something that they're gonna put out that is going to destabilize the region, Israel, probably block the Hormuz Canal, which is going to play on the economic, world supply chain. So definitely the movement of the United States, it was essential to be done. We all understand that Israel was really desperate in getting the U.S. involved in this war. However, Donald Trump has resisted so many times. And, whatever happened yesterday in the past 24 hours, whether it's a false flag, by the Israelis, by fake intelligence, we've seen this before happen just to get the United States. But what we understand is the U.S. jets are on the way to the skies of Iran, and basically they're going to monitor. I doubt that the U.S. or Donald Trump is intentionally, he wants to do war, or he wants to bomb Tehran or kill any civilians. He's a firm believer that he's anti-war and he shouldn't kill civilians. But as he said, if it takes, he's going to basically retaliate.
Mr. Ali Ibrahim, this is very concerning to me as a host here, because I'm coming to terms with what Donald Trump is trying to say with his messages, because he just posted 2 words: unconditional surrender. He did not indicate who the message is for, but also this other message that he posted a little while earlier, that we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He has an easy target, or he's an easy target, but he's safe there. We are not going to take him out or kill him, at least not for now, but we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. That right there is concerning.
It's concerning. However, let me tell you, there is a model. I think when he said unconditional surrender, that probably means it's the model of what happened in Libya when they tried to pursue the basically nuclear plant, which is basically they dismantled the plant and they had to ship it under the IAEA, and it has to be tracked. So it has to be a full surrender of the nuclear program that Iran is pursuing. This is how I would translate this message. To also remember that Donald Trump does play with the psychology to put pressure on the leaders of these kind of countries and to create anxiety among the people. So today, if the Iranian people, the noble Iranian people, if they rise, probably the chances for them is to turn over the regime is higher than before. That if it's going to happen, I'm saying. But it is a mix of many things that psychologically is the President Donald Trump is playing. So he's putting out all his cards, he's putting out all his threats before actually he fires one bomb on Iran. If the supreme leader comes and basically surrender the nuclear program, and Iran comes into the international community, then it's good and fine. But if they decide to go head and head to protect themselves and protect the Revolutionary Guard and the people who's been sucking the Iranian people for many decades, I think they have to face their destiny. And this reminds me of what the U.S. troops did to Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, how the Marines and the CIA in a joint operation, they actually probably managed to kill the equivalent to the spiritual leader as far as influence, as far as security. So it is definitely an all bets on the table for Trump to get Iran to surrender peacefully before they start actually bombing anybody in Iran or kill any political figure.
Mr. Ali Ibrahim, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. We are out of time right now, but thank you very much for talking to WION World as One today. Let's begin with some breaking news at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has made a big declaration as Israel and Iran continue to strike each other for the 5th consecutive day. He has declared that U.S. has complete control over the skies in Iran. This comes as questions grow over whether the United States will join Israel's strikes against the Islamic Republic. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, and I quote, "Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA." He hailed the U.S. and the use of U.S.-made weaponry, although without explicitly mentioning Israel. Trump's remark comes hours after he said that he wants to end the Israel-Iran war and not go for a ceasefire. I'll read part of the statement given by Trump on Truth Social. He says, "We now have complete and total control of the skies of Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old United States of America." And moments later, he posted another tweet. He said, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, or he's an easy target, but safe there. We are not going to take him out or kill him, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter." And again, he tweeted 2 words: unconditional surrender. So this is what the United States President has been posting over the past few minutes. Let's talk to our correspondent Susan Teherani, who's now joining us live. Susan Teherani, what do you make of this posts by the President?
So the question now remains whether or not the United States has officially entered this strike and these strikes against Iran with Israel, or is he alluding to the fact that the United States in its defense capacity is continuing to assist Israel? One thing is for sure, something happened yesterday, something big, it's intelligence or whatnot, whatever it is. Donald Trump left the G7. After that, he met with his National Security Council today. I presume that they're still meeting, and he became very clear on how Iran should not have a nuclear weapon and what the United States would do in assisting Israel. Until now, it was in Israel, it was helping with its defense capabilities, but the mixed messaging was whether or not the United States would get directly involved. We have never seen a U.S. president until now, contemporary U.S. president, threaten the Iranian supreme leader like this. So these are all very developing situations right now, and we're watching very closely.
Well, Susan, this is a great concern for the United States as we speak, because there are so many who are concerned on what America will do in this war between Israel or Iran. But I'll come back to you because I see you are at the United Nations headquarters. Let's just... Well, the escalating Iran-Israel conflict puts the United States in a precarious position, facing intense pressure to intervene, even as it seeks to avoid another costly entanglement in West Asia. At the heart of this dilemma is the question, will America be drawn into the Iran-Israel war? The U.S. Embassy in Israel, struck by an Iranian missile on Monday, the first strike on an American diplomatic facility in this conflict, points at escalation concern bigger than ever before. Though, at least so far, the United States has spoken of restraint, there is also no denying that powerful forces are pushing America closer to deeper involvement. First, Israel's call. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally requested the United States military support to target Iran's deeply buried Fordo uranium enrichment site. Israeli officials confirmed they lack the capability to destroy this facility independently. Secondly, there is mounting domestic political pressure on President Trump from within his own party. Former Vice President Mike Pence stated that if Israel needs U.S. help to destroy Iran's nuclear program, the United States should be prepared to do it, calling Israel its most cherished ally. Republican senators and hawks in Washington have urged Trump to go all in, including providing bombs or flying with Israel. And not to be missed, the direct attacks on U.S. interests, such as the attack on the embassy in Tel Aviv. Looking forward, Tehran could also attack international shipping in the Gulf or Red Sea, triggering a global energy crisis and potentially forcing U.S. intervention. But the U.S. entering the conflict carries immense dangers. Iran has vowed retaliation against any country aiding Israel. About 40,000 U.S. troops in West Asia, with their bases, embassy and naval vessels, facing immediate missile attacks from Iran or its proxies. If Iran feels its regime is existentially threatened, it might accelerate its nuclear program to develop a weapon, leading to an even more dangerous security landscape, and an economic fallout will be global. The Strait of Hormuz, a crucial choke point for 20% of the world oil, could become a war zone, causing energy prices to spike and destabilizing global markets. Tensions simmer and Israel is pressing forward, and the risk of the regional war is spiraling out of control, with potential U.S. involvement remaining dangerously real. This crisis could very well define President Trump's second term. Mr. Gabriel Noronha is a former special advisor for Iran at the U.S. State Department under Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Executive Director of Polaris National Security, is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Noronha, welcome to the program. The White House has released some messaging saying that President Donald Trump has been very clear all along. Trump has been clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The president is now essentially ignoring the director of his national intelligence, who says Iran was not close to weaponizing its enrichment program. The U.S. president insists right now that the United States is in a defensive posture in terms of assisting Israel. What do you read from what Trump is trying to say here?
Look, President Trump is making clear that all of Iran's nuclear program will be destroyed. That includes Fordow, that includes everything in Isfahan, that includes everything in Natanz. And what that requires are difficult things that even I can't discuss on a program like this sometimes.